Hello, everyone, and welcome to AQUALIS's third Water Compliance Summit. My name is Katie Johns, and I'm the Editor-in-Chief of Stormwater Solutions, and we are very excited to have you here today. Before we get started, I just have a little bit of housekeeping to go over with you. To begin, let me explain how you can participate in today's session. First off, if you have any technical difficulties during the event, please put your question into the questions window and our technical experts will help you out. We recommend disabling any pop-up blocking software or extensions in your browser, as these can cause issues with the webinar player. Additionally, we welcome your questions during today's event and this session. We will answer as many questions as possible during the Q&A that will follow each session, but please feel free to send in your questions at any time. To do so, simply type your questions into the Ask a Question window on the side of your screen and hit Submit. Also, please be aware that today's event is being recorded and you'll be notified by email when the archive is available. Lastly, at the conclusion of this session, you will receive an email with a link to download your certificate, which can be used to submit for credit with Stormwater University or serve as one professional development hour for attending today's webinar. You need to view the session for a minimum of 50 minutes to receive a link to download your certificate. That is 50 minutes. If viewing the session on demand, you will need to take and pass a short quiz to receive your link to download the certificate. Before we start our first session of the day, I'd like to introduce you to Erin Grenz, Chief Development Officer at AQUALIS, to provide us with some opening remarks to kick off our day. So Erin, over to you.
Oh, Erin, you're on mute.
Technical difficulties to start off the day. Thanks, Katie. Good morning, and thank you for joining AQUALIS's Sustainable Water Compliance Summit. My name is Erin Grenz, Chief Development Officer at AQUALIS. On behalf of AQUALIS, I would like to welcome you to our event as we appreciate your virtual attendance today. This is our third annual event centered on the importance of the water sector as a whole. During our previous summits, we discussed aging infrastructure, emerging technologies, introduced conversations related to PFAS, and provided educational sessions about green infrastructure. Today, the focus is action. If you don't keep pushing, the world doesn't move. Matt Damon, in his book, The Worth of Water, co-authored with Gary White, our closing keynote speaker, succinctly captures this sentiment. How many of you have found yourselves asking, why am I doing this if no one else around me seems to care? If we were all in a conference hall together, I'd wager that about 75% of us would raise our hands. And that's precisely the focus of today's conversations. We have thousands of participants today, representing large and small municipalities, students, educators, environmental health and safety compliance professionals, lawyers, engineers, healthcare leaders, investors, and construction executives. All of you are here because you care. Together, we can move the world. Throughout today's sessions, you will witness real-world action and implementation through our presenters' case studies, all aimed at transforming our communities for the better. We will explore what worked, what didn't, and the lessons learned to guide us as we move forward. This interactive and educational event will help drive awareness and improve local, regional, and national sustainable water compliance programs. Our intent today is that you take away hours of thought leadership and tools to drive action and improve your water compliance programs. We will begin with the opening keynote address from Lisa Haney. Lisa is the Executive Director of Planning and Natural Resources for the Orange County Water District. In her keynote, Lisa will address the transformative potential of stormwater as a valuable resource in sustainable urban development by rethinking traditional stormwater management practices and creating new opportunities for water reuse and conservation. As I mentioned, we will end today's summit with our closing keynote address from Gary White. Gary is an observer, an innovator, and a passionate problem solver. He has created solutions that have empowered millions of people in need with access to safe water and sanitation. As the CEO and co-founder of Water.org and Water Equity, White developed Water.org's Water Credit Initiative, introducing innovative financing options for underprivileged populations to meet their water supply and sanitation needs. Additionally, Water Equity is the first ever impact investment manager dedicated to ending the global water crisis in our lifetime. This organization focuses solely on fostering and deploying capital to water and sanitation businesses that assist people in impoverished communities throughout Asia, Africa, and Latin America. His contributions have been recognized on numerous occasions. In 2011, White and his co-founder Matt Damon were included in the Time 100 list of the world's most influential people. In 2022, White and Damon penned The Worth of Water, a book that inspires readers to help end the global water crisis by encouraging families and communities to secure safe water resources. Make sure you join us for our final event today as I chat with Gary about the water crisis, why it is so important, and why companies need a water strategy, not in addition to their environmental, social, and governance goals, but in service of them. We are extremely excited to bring these two speakers who have varied and immense experiences that we hope you will find impactful and provide new perspectives on sustainable water management practices, not only here in the US, but globally as well. During today's panel, our topic of conversation surrounds PFAS and emerging contaminants. PFAS belong to a family of synthetic chemicals used to make products that resist heat, oil, stains, grease, and water, and have been used in industry and consumer products worldwide since the 1940s. They are also known as forever chemicals, as they do not break down and can persist indefinitely in water and soil. Humans and animals can be exposed to PFAS by touching, drinking, eating, or breathing in materials containing the chemicals. As it relates to our conversation today, PFAS have been found in public drinking water systems and private drinking water wells. According to a 2023 study by the U.S. Geological Survey, at least 45% of the nation's tap water is estimated to have one or more types of PFAS. As the EPA brings more and more attention to PFAS and their impact on us, including the linkage to an increased risk of certain cancers, it will become more imperative than ever to develop sustainable solutions to combat. Additionally, understanding their presence in stormwater and wastewater can help mitigate their impact and prevent them from entering water bodies, as well as allow for the development of treatment solutions to remove or reduce PFAS contamination. Our subject matter experts from industry engineering firms will share research on these contaminants, the challenges they bring to the market, and how we as an industry can move forward in sustainable practices to undertake and solve. We will also hear from experts in green stormwater infrastructure. This is a topic that we have covered every year during our summit, but it continues to emerge as an area of interest. Today, we will delve into the profound significance of integrating nature-based solutions into our urban landscapes through case studies that address both the opportunity GSI planning and implementation can bring to commercial sites and municipalities, as well as lessons learned upon application. These presentations will also incorporate technology used to identify the best solutions for each case. We are experiencing an AI and data revolution. In the 21st century, the integration of data and digitalization has become pivotal in various sectors, and water compliance management is no exception. The convergence of environmental awareness, technological advances, and the pressing need for sustainable practice has pushed our industry to adopt innovative solutions. Among these, leveraging data and digitalization stands out as a transformative approach. Wastewater management is a critical aspect of environmental stewardship and public health. As urbanization continues to grow, the demand for effective and efficient wastewater treatment escalates. Data and digitalization play a crucial role in revolutionizing wastewater management. By integrating these technologies and utilizing data-driven insights, it becomes possible to optimize processes, reduce costs, and minimize environmental impact. We are very excited to hear from our speakers this year as they share the AI and technology they have implemented as well as the challenges they've had to overcome while employing technology as a sustainable practice. With that being said, today you will hear from industry experts, discuss these many topics, and what we as leaders within the water industry need to do to drive change and create a better, more sustainable environment for us and future generations. AQUALIS was founded with one mission: to inspire change by preserving and protecting our most precious natural resource, water. I hope that you leave our summit excited and ready to act in the future of water sustainability. Katie, would you please introduce our first keynote speaker?
Yes, thank you, Erin. I am excited to kick off the event with our first session, Capturing Stormwater, Tapping the Resource. Our keynote speaker today is Lisa Haney, Executive Director of Planning and Natural Resources for the Orange County Water District. Lisa oversees the Planning and Watershed Management and Natural Resource Department at the Orange County Water District. Under her oversight, these departments prepare the district's environmental documents, resource agency permit applications, groundwater management plan, long-term facilities plan, and conduct the district's natural resource management, watershed planning, and recharge planning. Lisa has more than 20 years of experience in public utilities and regulatory policy and compliance. Prior to joining OCWD, she worked for Irvine Ranch Water District, Orange County Sanitation District, and Los Angeles County Sanitation District. Lisa holds a bachelor's degree in zoology from Northern Arizona University and a master's degree in marine science from the University of Charleston, South Carolina. With that, I will hand it over to Lisa.
Excellent. Good morning, everybody. I'm so excited to kick off this summit with you and be here with you. I'd like to take you on a field trip through my watershed, which is the Santa Ana watershed in Southern California. And I'd like to kick off by asking some questions. I know we won't be able to interact in live format, but I'd like you to think about these and be intentional in the space with me and engaging. So we're going to start off by a very simple question. I'd like to ask you, what is stormwater? It seems like a relatively simple question, but surprisingly, it's not. Stormwater is different things to different people and has meant different things at different times. If you were to ask urban planners 30 years ago, what is stormwater? They would likely say it was a flood risk. If you were to ask your neighbor what stormwater was, they might say it's a nuisance. You know, it gets in the way of them doing their daily activities. It dirties their freshly cleaned car. It gets their hair wet, right? I'd like to say that the function and purpose of stormwater has changed over the decades. And today, I think stormwater is not just a flood risk. It is still a flood risk, but it is an opportunity to be a resource, and a resource in many different ways. And that's what I'd like to share with you today through my experience of 25 years working in the water sector. And there's two different kinds of stormwater. I want to just get the definitions out early. There's the water that falls from the sky and lands cleanly in waterways. And then there's the water that falls to the ground on city surfaces that picks up pollutants and carries that away through a conveyance system to our waterways like the ocean and our rivers. And we're going to talk about how we need to manage both of those types of stormwater, how both of those can still be a resource, and what we can do moving forward. We all know and learned the natural water cycle in grade school. This is how water naturally moves through the environment. Water is neither lost nor destroyed. It is just recycled over and over, and is an important resource to humans and to wildlife. And this is really important as we think about urban planning and we look at the lessons learned of how we've altered this natural cycle over time and how maybe planning forward, we need to find some balance to this. In California, I'm from California, I'm in Southern California specifically, Every region of the United States has a catastrophe, a weather catastrophe that they have to deal with. On the East Coast, it's hurricanes. In the Northeast, it's ice storms. In the Midwest, it's tornadoes. For us in California and the Western United States, it's atmospheric rivers. And atmospheric rivers are large rivers in the sky, I think is the easiest way to explain it. They come in, they dump a lot of rain within 12 to 72 hours. And surprisingly, just a few atmospheric rivers makes up 50% of our water supply in California. So these are very huge opportunities for us, but they are also things that we need to plan for in terms of flood risk and safety. And I'm going to be talking about how we at Orange County Water District really use these atmospheric rivers as our opportunity for stormwater capture and reuse. So let's go back to the water cycle. It's critically important for stormwater professionals to understand this, and really just for all humans in general. And what I love about this picture is I want you to look at both sides of the picture and understand how humans have changed the landscape and how that affects our water cycle. What's the difference between each of these sides of the screen? What you see here is that we've come in and we've built cities. And in building cities, we've paved over all of our surfaces. That means less recharge into the groundwater system. That means that we're conveying water directly to waterways. It means it's picking up pollutants and then carrying that to a river, and that's affecting wildlife. It means we're not keeping water in our cities, and it means that the natural environment around us is affected. How can we do better? That's the question. When a flood comes in, cities, the main purpose of urban development and city planning when it comes to water was how do we move water out of the city as quickly as possible to prevent flood risk and to keep people safe. So stormwater management, I think in its infancy, its sole purpose was public safety. And I'd like to say, and I'd like you to think about how maybe this purpose has changed over time. This picture was taken in February in San Diego. The cities have been designed for flood control, but these atmospheric rivers that we're getting now are completely different. They're much larger, they're more intense, and their urbanization is not prepared for the amount of water that's being dumped on them in such a short amount of time. So we need to think as urban planners how to plan differently. And when we know that the stormwater is coming into the cities and it's picking up all the pollutants around us from the roadways, from the roofs of our houses, from businesses, from pets. So we have pet waste, fertilizers, motor oil, detergents, chemicals, and just trash. And all of this gets carried away. What we need to do in our urban planning is figure out some source control management and treatment. And what's interesting is, I come from a wastewater background, 20 years in wastewater, and wastewater started out the same way. Their original purpose was just to get wastewater out of the cities for human health, right? Get it away so that viruses weren't making people sick, and then to move it out. And they used to treat minimally and then discharge to the ocean. Over time, they realized the need for more increased source control, better enhanced treatment systems, because we realized we were having effects on oceans. And I feel like stormwater has been behind in that capacity. And so this is the time where stormwater is now needing to learn, maybe from the wastewater industry, how to do source control, how to do better treatment, and then how to use the water as a resource and not a waste. So I think there's an opportunity to learn from each other in these industries. It used to be that wastewater was the #1 source of pollution to the ocean or to waterways. And with enhanced treatment over time, it's no longer the case. You know, stormwater is now the #1 source of pollution to humans and wildlife. And this is a truth, but it's also an opportunity. So what do we do with this? And let's talk about our opportunities. So we have the urban water cycle, and this is different, very different than the natural water cycle. The urban water cycle is how we move and engineer water around our cities for the sole purpose of human need. And a lot of times, these different water utilities act in silos. They just do their own business model, and they're not necessarily interacting. So we have flood control districts. We have dams that are holding water for flood control. We have wastewater treatment, which I've already talked about. We have recycled water treatment plants, and we have drinking water. We have a lot of different types of water. There is one industry that's missing from this diagram, and I wonder if any of you can figure out what it is. Take a look, and I'll tell you, it's groundwater. What's missing in that diagram are the groundwater agencies, and there's quite a few of us around. Not everyone has a groundwater system available to them, but there are several around, and there are several opportunities to collaborate with groundwater. So we have all of these different water agencies, and my question to everyone is, how can we all come together to work together to solve water problems together? Our opportunities become much larger. Our cost-benefit ratios for projects become better when we come together to solve problems. And that's exactly what Orange County Water District has been doing at a watershed level planning scale. And that's what I'd like to talk more about as we dive further into my talk today. We want to talk about intentional urban planning, not where every agency is working by themselves in a silo. We need to figure out how we can come together and make a difference within our cities, within our county, within our watershed, and within our region. Each person here today has a different water story. I'm going to tell mine. I'm going to talk about Orange County Water District's story. And what I'd like to do is ask you to figure out what your story is and to come back and share that with others as much as you can. We need to talk to each other as frequently and as often as possible to share ideas and to learn from each other. Orange County Water District is a very large agency employing stormwater capture and reuse in different ways and at multiple spatial scales. I like to consider us a one water agency. And what does one water mean? This is like the definition of stormwater. It means different things to different people. For me, I would like to define one water as the opportunity to interact with more than one water agency for a greater benefit. And that's exactly what we do. And we work with the environment, with cities, and with other utilities. As I mentioned before, I'm from Southern California, Orange County, and we are sandwiched between Los Angeles and San Diego, so we're right in the middle. We are located at the bottom of the Santa Ana River watershed, which is really important. And we are a groundwater wholesaler providing a local sustainable water supply to drinking water producers who distribute that water to residents and businesses. 85% of the drinking water in northern and central Orange County come from our water supply. That means we are providing a local and sustainable water supply for our region. We serve 19 cities and retail water districts in North and Central Orange County. We work very closely with all of our partners in the Santa Ana River watershed. And we have, like I mentioned, 85% local supply. What is a groundwater basin anyway? It's not as popular of a utility, I think, in many forms, but I think it's critically important locally. You can kind of think of it as a bathtub underground. It is a geological formation that allows us to store water underground and then provide the opportunity for producers to put a straw in different places of that groundwater basin and pull that water out, treat it, and then supply it as drinking water. We have 66 million acre feet of groundwater and an operating storage range of 500,000 acre feet. It's a good size. Where is this groundwater basin? Out of sight, out of mind, you can't see it, it's underground. It's in the middle of our watershed. And here's a picture, and I really want to point out key features of this picture because I'm gonna take you on a field trip right now. And I want to make sure that you're following along with me. So we're in the middle Santa Ana River watershed. At the top right corner, you'll see there's Prado Dam. This is a big area where we work with the Army Corps of Engineers to do large-scale stormwater capture. When they release water from the dam, it goes downstream through the river and it lands at our surface recharge basins below. This is the area where water can be pulled from the river and allowed to percolate into the ground and fill up our bathtub, our groundwater basin. What's interesting is not every place can recharge water. I want you to think about going to the beach. When you're at the beach and you're sitting there, if you were to dump a glass of water into the sand at the beach, you would notice the water would disappear very quickly. If you were to do that in a clay layer or back at home, that water wouldn't dissipate as fast. It really depends. You really need that geological formation where there's a lot of sand in an area that allows the water to percolate through. And that's what we have at this surface recharge basin area. We have a lot of sand. So we can pull it off and then it just soaks right back into the groundwater. Now, where do we get our water to fill up this bathtub? As any good financial advisor would advise, it's really important to have a diverse portfolio. And that's true for water. You need diversification. And here's an example of our portfolio, and I want to go over it a little bit with you and explain it. We do purchase 15% of our water through imported water. That's through the State Water Project and the Colorado River. It's very expensive to purchase imported water, and it's not really sustainable long-term to do that. So we are looking for innovative ways to bring other types of water into our area for groundwater recharge. Like I mentioned before, we have the river. What's interesting about our river, the Santa Ana River, is that we have 4 wastewater agencies north of us in the river. And most of the flow that comes down the river is treated discharge from wastewater agencies. It's not natural stormwater flow. So we are very dependent on what those agencies discharge. The Prado Dam, which I mentioned earlier, that is a dry dam. That means they don't hold any water unless there's a storm. their sole purpose at the dam is for flood control. If the water is flowing and there's no flood risk, then the water flows. We're able to pick that up, pull it to the side, and recharge it. Our opportunity for large amounts of stormwater capture are when those atmospheric rivers come in. So our Santa Ana River base flow is just what the wastewater agencies are putting into the river. And then the storm flow is the extra that we get from storms that come by. And then we, of course, have a little bit of natural recharge that just happens throughout the watershed that percolates elsewhere. And then we've created this really innovative project in partnership with the with the sanitation district that's right next door to us, which is Orange County Sanitation District. And we built what's called the GWRS system. This is the groundwater recharge system. And it was an opportunity for us to take additional storm flows, urban runoff, and recycled wastewater to clean that up to a higher level, and then to pipe that back up into the watershed where our recharge basins are to percolate. So we're getting two different sources of water. One we're creating with our partnership with Orange County Sanitation, and the other we're getting from storm flow and wastewater agencies north of us in the watershed. What's been happening over time is that the weather keeps changing. We had drought for 4 years, and then the last 2 years, we've had really wet weather. And that affects and explains why having a diversified portfolio is so important. So we're able to keep consistent our GWRS water because we have a partnership. We know what's coming in. We have a guaranteed source of water. The flows that come down the river are not guaranteed. They're very dependent on storms. And then they're also dependent on the flow that the wastewater agencies put out themselves. And with regulations really inspiring people to do more water reuse projects, that means those wastewater agencies to the north of us are also optimizing, and they're reusing their water and therefore putting less base flows out. So these are things that we have to control in our portfolio and then plan for in advance. So since we know those base flows are going to be coming down, we need to be optimizing for more stormwater capture when those atmospheric rivers come in. And because we've had 2 wet years in a row, our bathtub is pretty much full, which means we don't need to buy very much imported water right now, and maybe not at all next year, which would be fabulous. The other thing I want you to know about our portfolio is that water quality really does matter. And when we talk about stormwater capture, what goes hand in hand with capture is the quality. What is the quality of your water? And one of the quality things that we really think about is salinity management within the region and within our watershed and within our basin itself. And each of these water sources has a different salinity. And I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later and talking about how we manage for that. As I mentioned, we have the GWRS system. It's the groundwater replenishment system. So we are a recycled water agency, not just a groundwater supply. We have this partnership. And this was a long-term vision. It took a long time to envision and implement and complete. We just completed it last year. It's a guaranteed source of water, 134,000 acre feet a year. And it has the lowest TDS salinity value. So this is our freshest source of water in our portfolio, which is very important. So here is one of the opportunities where a groundwater basin can partner with a wastewater agency. And that wastewater agency is partnering with stormwater agencies and city agencies. So Orange County Sanitation is able to take in urban runoff as part of their water supply and treatment, and it becomes part of their water that they deliver to us. But what's also interesting with wastewater treatment plants is that they take in a lot of stormwater. And people don't talk about this very often, but when it rains, a lot of that stormwater, that first flush, which is, picks up a lot of the pollutants, that goes into the wastewater agency and luckily gets treated. And that goes through all the manholes in the street, that just soaks in, and they're able to capture a significant amount of that first flush. It's not directed, and it can't be because it would overflow their system and they wouldn't be able to take that on. But it's important to know that they are taking some stormwater, I&I is what we call it. And that's not a bad thing. It's not necessarily a good thing because they got to balance out their systems, but it's not a bad thing either. And as there's more conservation for water, the state's really pushing for water conservation. That means people are using less and less water. But the wastewater agencies are designed for a certain amount of flow. So they are now looking for partnership opportunities, not all of them, but many of them, because they need increased flow into their wastewater treatment systems. So urban water diversions, LA County Sanitation is doing stormwater diversions into their system, and many other agencies are already in partnership with stormwater in cities to increase flows for treatment. This is not your only option for stormwater treatment, and I really want to caution everyone to think that this is your only option and that every wastewater agency is your solution. It's not. Every situation is different. And it's a conversation that everyone needs to have, and you have to balance out what the needs are of the different agencies and regionally for the cities as well. For us, it made sense to do a partnership, and we really appreciate that Orange County Sanitation goes out and looks for those partnership opportunities to ensure that we receive the amount of water that we need to recharge our basin. Okay, I'm going to take you back. Now I'm going to move away from GWRS. I'm going to take you back to the dam, the Prado Dam. This dam is operated by the Army Corps of Engineers. And as I mentioned, it's a dry dam. But during the storms, you can see on the left-hand side that it holds quite a bit of water. And that water is really important for the natural environment that lives behind Prado Dam. It's one of the largest wetlands in Southern California, and it's home to an endangered species called the Lisa Bell's vireo. And so stormwater capture here is very critical to this species, and that inundation of water and then removal, that flow of back and forth is what brings nutrients and food and promotes habitat growth for this species. We have the largest recovery of the Lisa Bell's vireo because of our partnership with the dam and this holding water and releasing. And environmental flows are really important as part of the planning process. And environmental flows just means understanding the amount of flow that you need to support a natural habitat and understanding what is left over for water reuse projects and other partnerships. And so we work very closely with all of our partners in the watershed to understand exactly what's needed to support the wildlife, but then to also use that water, what's left over, for recycled water projects upstream or downstream, or for capture and reuse through the groundwater basin. Okay, this is a side profile of Prado Dam depicting the wetlands at the right and the elevation of the dam. It's very high. It's meant to capture extreme floods. Very little water is held behind it, even when there is a storm. And then Prado can release that water at a rate at which we can take it downstream and infiltrate it back into our groundwater basin. If they release the water too fast, it will move right over our groundwater infiltration system and it won't percolate. So the rate of flow really matters. And we're right now at an elevation of 505 behind the dam. That's what we're allowed to hold water to. That's our agreement. We would like to hold more. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about our strategy for wanting to go higher in elevation to hold more stormwater and still be able to do the main mission for the Army Corps, which is flood control and safety, and then release it. And also while making sure we're preserving the environment and habitat behind the dam. So this has been a long-term partnership between us and the Army Corps of Engineers. And it has been a slow progression of trust building over time. We've slowly started capturing and holding a little bit more water over the years. And as you can see, we're now at 505. The way that this has been done and managed historically is they've waited to see how much water falls from a storm, hits the ground. They have meters and measurements upstream, so they'll know exactly how much water is coming and then how to manage that. But it's like boots on the ground, water on the ground. How are we managing that? What we'd like to do is we'd like to start managing that a little bit differently, and we'd like to start using prediction, weather prediction rather than water on the ground and reacting to that. So we have this new management system called FIRO. It's Forecast Informed Reservoir Operations. This is an AI tool development to help predict what these storms are going to do. How much precipitation is it going to have, and how much rainfall and flow will be coming down the river. So instead of just reacting, we can think about what's going to be predicted and then manage for what's predicted. We've been practicing this for the last 3 years and looking at the prediction versus actual, and then how we've been reacting to that. And it's been very good. The predictions aren't 100%. It's AI, it's machine learning, so it's still learning, but it's doing a great job. And in using a predictive management system, it allows the Army Corps of Engineers to have more trust in what's coming, and then to be able to manage the system differently and hold water higher and longer instead of just releasing it at a high rate and then it passes us and gets wasted to the ocean. So we've been able to capture more just in operating differently. And here, I love this slide. This is a great slide. This is stormwater capture over time. And what you can see immediately, and this is what everyone says, is, stormwater's not guaranteed, right? You can have wet years and you can have really dry years. It's not a dependable resource. And this is why people don't build infrastructure for it, because they feel like it's too expensive to build infrastructure for something that's not a guaranteed resource. What I'd like you to notice is, like any investment, it may not pay off the first year. Your investment may take years before you see the gains. And what you can see is over time, this investment in stormwater has helped us to save over $300 million over 30 years. And we expect to be able to save even more in the next couple of years using FIRO, a different way of operating. So I'd like to challenge everyone. This is clearly penciling out for us. If cities started doing urban planning and we started doing more partnerships where we are building infrastructure for stormwater, I think it will pay off huge for everyone and become a resource. And I think we have to stop measuring a project's value by acre feet. You have to really start thinking about, what is the cost of not doing these projects? What is the cost of not having what we need in the future? It's going to cost more if we don't start thinking and solving these problems now. And I mentioned earlier that salinity is part of our stormwater management system. And I mentioned that GWRS is our project that delivers us the lowest salinity. And that way we can kind of blend out the higher salinity water sources in our portfolio. Imported water really is one of our higher salinity sources, and we really need to fix that. And then our stormwater from the atmospheric rivers, that is also one of our lower sources. So we need more stormwater with our GWRS water to balance out the salinity of our other water sources. So it's part of managing our assets and resources. So I've already talked about atmospheric rivers. I'm going to move forward because we're running out of time. Just know that this is an asset for us. We're looking for ways to capture this more. I think everyone else should be trying to do the same thing on the West Coast. These extreme weather opportunities can benefit us if we can figure out how to do it. And I mentioned that FERO is how we're going to be operating moving forward. It's prediction of weather. We're using this at dams. I think this could be used within cities and urban planning to prepare for flooding, but also for capture. If people want to do more stormwater capture projects, this is an operating system that we find to be very beneficial. This could be used for drinking water supply, recycled water supply, urban planning, pretty much, anything. I think this is a great new tool set. And we're hoping to capture more water, as I mentioned. We're hoping to go higher in elevation. We're at 505 right now. We want to go to 510 or 512, and we would get up to 6,000 more acre feet per year if we were to do 512. And there's no average weather anymore for Southern California. It used to be a very stable climate. We're now into weather extremes. I don't know about you guys, but it's raining like every weekend, and it feels like summer for like 2 days, and then it feels like winter again. And then we call that whiplash weather. And we have to start managing for this whiplash weather. It's definitely changing, and we need to think and manage and plan differently for that moving forward. One of the great benefits and value of forecast-informed reservoir operations is that we're doing this as an operational project. There's absolutely no construction, which is wonderful to residents. So this is a way to capture water without doing construction. And we're using every tool in the toolbox that we can within our watershed, within our region. We're using urban runoff. We're using recycled water, and we're partnering with wastewater agencies, all for the purpose of providing a local and resilient drinking water resource to North and Central Orange County. One water, what does one water mean? Like I mentioned before, it means different things to different people, but this is your opportunity, all of you, to go out and figure out where your connections are, where you can partner, where you can innovate, where you can do something with meaningful purpose at different spatial scales. We have all of these sources of water that are individual drops. We need to start blending and figuring out where we can come together and work together for a larger purpose. We need to conserve natural resources. We need to conserve our drinking water. We need to improve our water quality in our cities and in our environment. We need local, sustainable supplies, and we need a better quality of life for our residents. And we know climate change is here, and we need to adapt and plan for that. And the best way to do that is through a holistic management approach. I think it always makes more sense to start with a watershed or regional approach and then start spatially managing downward. When you go bigger, there's more opportunities for grant funding, for infrastructure sharing, for cost sharing, and solving big problems. So I'd like you to think about your area, who you're associated with, and how you can make a difference. Who are you talking to? Who are you not talking to? Who should you be talking to solve these problems? And then my challenge to you today is to go out and build those bridges, to think of new possibilities, and to plan with intention, and then come back and tell your water story. And that's where I'm going to end it today. So if there's any questions, I would be happy to take them.
Thank you, Lisa, for that presentation. We did get a bunch of questions, so we'll use our last 9-10 minutes here to get through as many of them as we can. So first up, we have, since the aquifer you're talking about is below sea level, how does management prevent saltwater infiltration?
That is a great question. So we also use our GWRS system to create a freshwater barrier where we pump it into the ground and create a wall that prevents the seawater from intruding into our groundwater basin. And that's a whole nother presentation to do. But just know it's another way to use recycled water to prevent intrusion. So you can do like an underground wall.
Perfect. Okay. I think you touched on this, but maybe expand. Has desalination been considered as a recharge method?
It has. And, you know, desalination is another tool in your toolbox, right? What's really important is to understand where it's needed and where it makes sense financially. So we did have a desalination project come to Orange County for consideration. What's interesting is we didn't really need it in our area. We have such a large and successful groundwater basin that we don't need another external source of water for supply. It didn't really make sense to do it in this location. Mm-hmm. In other parts and in other areas, it's very needed. So again, it's creating the resource where you need it and solving the problem that needs to be solved, not just building projects to build projects. And the way you figure that out is you bring all the stakeholders together and you figure out, is there a problem? You always have to start, is there a problem, or are we just building something?
Yeah. Okay, this question has 2 parts. Are outfall structures effective, and who should be doing those designs, local municipalities or counties?
What kind of outfall structures are we talking about? Stormwater outfall, ocean outfall?
Let's go with stormwater out. It doesn't specify, but let's go with stormwater.
Stormwater outfalls. Yeah, they're all very different with different purposes. So the purpose of a stormwater outfall really is flood control, right? It's just to move water as quickly out of the city as possible. That's their function. So are they doing their function? Absolutely. Is that the way that we should be managing stormwater? Maybe not. I think there are other ways to do that. Again, partnering with a wastewater utility is just one tool in the toolbox. I would love for cities and stormwater agencies to think about directly partnering with us, the groundwater basin. Forget the wastewater agency. Direct your outfall over to our groundwater recharge basins. We'll take it. Again, those are the opportunities. You could do little mini treatment systems, source control. Oh my gosh. You know, what we really need is some innovation and design around source control. If you could make little like aquarium setups, right, where you can just put the stormwater through like some carbon filtration, you know, that would help a lot. But again, we have emerging contaminants of concern that we need to source control for as well. And there's a lot of innovation in that space that I think needs to happen. We're doing that for our drinking water wells with PFAS and microplastics. I think you can do the same thing for stormwater. We can learn from each other.
Absolutely. Someone is asking what your area's annual rainfall is in inches.
Oh my gosh. It's so different depending on where you put the rain gauge. So the rainfall we get at Prado is very different than the rainfall we get in our spreading basins, and it's very different than where we are located with the GWRS system. So we can have like 4 inches in one place and we can have 8 inches in another place. Really, the microclimates are so different. That's a difficult question to answer. It really depends on what location you want to know.
Right. Where does the funding for Orange County storm system come from?
Orange County storm system.
Stormwater system.
I work for the Orange County Water District, so I'm not part of the Orange County storm system. We do partner with them. I don't know where the county receives their funding from, but where does Orange County Water District receive its funding from?
Yeah.
Maybe is the question. So we receive funding from our producers. We're a wholesaler, so we sell our water to the 19 cities and producers. They pay for that. And those fees that we charge for water is what pays for our infrastructure and our staff.
Perfect. Thank you. Is deep well water an option as part of the OCWD water source?
That's a great question, and I'm not a geologist, and I don't manage the groundwater basin. I think it is, but honestly, I'm not the right person to answer that question.
That's okay.
I could get back to you.
Okay, this is a bit of a broad question, but has a global method for passive point of entry filtration been explored?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So this person said
it sounds very engineering. Like I feel like I need an engineer to answer that question.
Well, that is okay. All right, no worries. We are about out of time anyway, so we will go ahead and wrap it up. We do have a few questions still in here, but we can go ahead and answer those offline. So Lisa, thank you so much for your time and this presentation. It was really insightful. And with that, do not forget our next sessions, a retrospective on green infrastructure, lessons learned in design and implementation, or how to solve wastewater collection challenges with AI and data science, a case study. You can join either session by exiting out of this event, going back into the agenda, and selecting the session you would like to attend. With that, we will see you all later. Thanks so much.